Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unpacking a really emotionally charged and honestly strategically fascinating moment from the epic Mahabharata. We're looking at the immediate aftermath of a completely disastrous game of dice. The heroes of our story, the Pandavas, have just lost absolutely everything and are being forced into a devastating exile. But as you'll see, this departure, it's not just a simple story of defeat. It's this incredibly complex tapestry of duty, immense loss, and ironclad resolve. It's epic in literally every sense of the word. Okay, let's dive into this. This plea from the crowd instantly establishes the immense emotional stakes of this sudden exile. The citizens aren't just losing a ruler. They feel completely abandoned by a father figure. This isn't just some dry political transition. It is a profound, heart-wrenching rupture in their entire world. I mean, you can practically hear the desperation in their voices right off the bat. All right, Section 1, Journey to the Forest. The tactical retreat begins. So I use the word tactical very deliberately here. When you think of banishment, you probably picture people walking out with nothing but the clothes on their backs, right? But here we have the Pandava brothers, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, and the twins. And the text specifically notes that each of them is radiating this divine, formidable energy, looking like unto Shiva. They're also accompanied by Krishna and their priest, riding in costly cars drawn by excellent steeds. And check this out, they're followed by 20 attendants equipped not just with bows and arrows, but with blazing weapons and literal engines of destruction. Plus, they've got this whole retinue with Indrasena, nurses, and maidservants. This specific presence of heavy weaponry and a structured entourage, it tells us this is a highly organized strategic maneuver. Basically, this is an army retreating to regroup, not some defeated family crawling away into the dirt. And even in the face of this massive upheaval, look at what the leaders do right before they actually depart. They distribute nishkas of gold, clothes, and kine, which are cows, to learned Brahmanas. I absolutely love this detail. It really highlights their continued generosity and strict adherence to their royal duties, even in the middle of a catastrophic defeat. They might have lost their kingdom, but they definitely haven't lost their character or their commitment to their spiritual and social obligations. Moving on to Section 2. A kingdom in mourning, the bond between ruler and subjects. While the Pandavas are keeping their composure, the citizens are just absolutely devastated. So the crucial point is, why is the king peacefully leaving instead of fighting back right away? Well, it all comes down to dharma. In this context, dharma represents cosmic law, the underlying order of the universe, and righteous duty. Yudhishthira isn't just a king. The citizens repeatedly refer to him as Oath Dharma, or the son of Dharma. He's the living embodiment of doing what is right and honoring his agreements no matter the personal cost. He's leaving because to stay and fight right now would break the cosmic and moral law he's sworn to uphold. And honestly, this dynamic right here is what makes his departure so incredibly painful. The text tells us the illustrious king felt for the citizens as a loving father feels for his sons. And in return, the citizens felt for the Kuru chief even as loyal sons feel for their father. It's like a perfect reciprocal mirror of profound civic loyalty and familial love. They are completely united in this mutual heartbreak. The text actually describes a mighty concourse of citizens approaching the hero, completely affected with bashfulness and with tears literally streaming from their eyes as they cry out, "Alas, O Lord, O Dharma." It's just a moment of pure, raw grief. They're mourning the physical departure of their leader for sure, but they're also mourning what feels like the departure of righteousness itself from their city. Which brings us to Section 3, the stolen splendor, the injustice of what was left behind. That grief? Well, it quickly boils over into righteous anger. The crowd passionately curses the antagonists, listing them out with pure venom. They cry, "Fie on the cruel-hearted son of Dhritarashtra! Fie on the evil-minded son of Suvala! Fie on Karna!" They call them wretches who ever wish ill upon those who are firm in virtue. It's fascinating to see because the crowd clearly views this exile not as some fair consequence of a game of dice, but as a malicious, evil plot engineered by cruel-righted enemies against a genuinely virtuous king. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the citizens are so angry. They remind Yudhishthira that he established the city of Indraprastha himself, boasting the unrivaled splendor of Mount Kailasha. Now, compare that to the stark, unforgiving reality of the forest they are being forced to retreat into. The crowd is basically asking, how can you leave a paradise you built to go live in the wilderness? They're particularly distraught over the loss of one specific architectural marvel. The text highlights this peerless palace built by Maya, describing it as possessing the splendor of the celestials themselves, almost like a celestial illusion guarded by the gods. Reminding us of this incredible, magical palace really amplifies the tragedy and the sheer injustice of the exile. I mean, they aren't just losing a house, they're being totally robbed of a divine marvel. Okay, section 4, Arjuna's strategic resolve, the pivot toward future justice. This brings us to the real climax of the text, transitioning us from sorrow to high-energy determination. I want to pose a pivotal question to you all. The text specifically notes that Arjuna knows the ways of virtue, pleasure, and profit. So knowing all of that, why accept this painful exile peacefully? Why not unleash those engines of destruction we saw earlier and just take the kingdom back? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the answer Arjuna gives in a loud voice to the weeping crowd. It changes everything. He says, "Living in the forest, the king intendeth to take away the good name of his enemies." Arjuna essentially reveals that their peaceful submission is actually a ruthless long-term tactical play. By enduring this unjust exile with absolute, perfect virtue, they are going to completely destroy their enemy's reputation and moral standing. They're basically letting their enemies hang themselves with their own cruelty. It's a massive PR long game. And Arjuna doesn't just explain the strategy. He actually gives the crowd actionable instructions. He rallies their despair and channels it into political and spiritual support. Step 1, recognize the king's strategic intent. Understand that this is a plan, not a surrender. Step 2, approach the ascetics separately. Step 3, represent to them what will be for the Pandavas' supreme good. He's essentially activating the citizens, turning their grief into a unified lobbying effort to secure spiritual grace and support for the long, tough game ahead. The excerpt ends on this incredibly poignant, bittersweet note. Upon hearing Arjuna's words, the citizens salute him cheerfully. They're reassured and inspired by his resolve, right? They walk around the virtuous men in a traditional sign of deep respect. But they return to their abodes with heavy hearts. They understand the strategy. They fully support their king. But the immense, agonizing weight of the departure still remains. The long, hard road has really just begun. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Based on everything we've unpacked today, the blazing weapons, the rigid adherence to Dharma, Arjuna's master plan to ruin their enemy's good name, is this exile simply a punishment? Or are we witnessing the very first, deeply calculated step toward an epic, unavoidable war? It completely shifts how we read this ancient text, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the narrative, keep looking at the strategy beneath the surface, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down fascinating stories.